Welcome to Finding Minimalism, Landscape Photography in Lewis and Harris. My name is Anthony Lamb and I'm a fine art photographer. In this presentation, I'll be exploring the art of minimalist landscape photography. Minimalism is often described as the practice of reducing elements down to their purest form in photography. That means removing distractions, simplifying the frame, and allowing just enough detail to create a sense of balance and emotion. In this video, I'll take you through my process of capturing minimalism in the landscape of the Isle of Lewis and Harris. I'll show you how I use composition, light, and stillness to craft images that are not only clean and simple, but also emotionally resonant. So, what exactly is minimalism? My first encounter with it came while I was studying furniture and product design at university. I became fascinated with designers from the Bauhaus movement, whose work emphasized simplicity, functionality, and elegance. The dictionary definition of minimalism describes it as a style in art, design, and theatre that uses the smallest range of materials and colours possible, employing only very simple shapes or forms. Minimalism permeates all areas of life, from design and architecture to music, visual arts, and even food. In photography, minimalism is about stripping away distractions to focus on the essential forms in front of you. By reducing a landscape to its fundamental shapes and lines, you capture its essence, its character, and its mood. It's not about ignoring complexity, it's about finding clarity within it. Minimalism is a visual language, but can you create minimalism out of chaos? Let me show you two aerial images of Times Square in New York, arguably the busiest place in the world. Looking closely, you can see cars, taxis, buildings, bright neon lights, and throngs of people crowding every corner. These images are the opposite of minimalist. But what if we could distill chaos into simplicity? Take this aerial image of the Chrysler Building. By adding a subtle, graduated radial filter around the building, I reduce the distraction of the streets below. Converting the image to black and white removes colour distractions, and a slight lens blur softens the background further. The result isn't necessarily a minimalist image, but it demonstrates the power of editing to focus attention, reduce noise, and change the emotional narrative of a photograph. Another example comes from Dubai, where I photographed the Jumeirah district at sunset on a stormy evening. The dramatic weather softened the atmosphere and allowed me to desaturate the tones, transforming a chaotic cityscape into something calmer and more ethereal. Converting the image to black and white stripped it back further, while the use of soft gradients helped isolate the subject, reducing the scene to its essentials and turning a vibrant urban view into a study of minimalism. These experiments taught me that minimalism is as much about intention and control of things like tonality, saturation and contrast, as it is about removing elements within the composition. It's about guiding the viewer's eye and shaping the story. But how do I approach minimalism in landscape photography? When capturing minimalist landscapes, certain tools and principles guide my methodology. Negative space. This is essential. Empty space allows your subject to breathe and gives viewers room to explore the image without distraction. Negative space also provides a sense of calm, letting the eye rest and appreciate the main subject's form. Geometry and balance. While symmetry, geometric patterns provide subtle stability, guiding the eye and creating harmony. Balance in an image gives peace of mind to the viewer and can allow the composition to resonate emotionally. Tones and texture Desaturating colours softens the visual impact, while texture can add depth and contrast. Light manipulation, contrast control, and post-processing choices all play a role in evoking the mood and the narrative of a photograph. But how far can minimalism go before a photograph becomes unrecognisable? For example, in Normandy, I stumbled across 4 small boats, almost lost in a sea of negative space. Capturing them taught me the delicate balance between simplicity and recognition, the line between abstraction and reality. Choosing the right location is key to minimalistic photography. Certain environments naturally lend themselves to minimalism. Coastal beaches, where wide open sands and receding tides create a clean canvas. Patterns in the sand, the movement of water, and the interplay of light and shadow allow for endless minimalist compositions. Deserts, expansive dunes, and endless skies provide space to isolate singular subjects capturing both scale and simplicity. Bodies of water like lakes, lochs, and seas provide reflective surfaces, and long exposures allow you to smooth motion and create a calm, ethereal mood. Isolated subjects, a solitary beach hut, a wooden post, or a lone tree can become a compelling focal point. Choosing subjects with character can add narrative depth to your minimalist images. For years, I had wanted to visit the Isle of Lewis and Harris. Once I identified the types of locations I wanted to explore, the next step was to plan the trip. In March 2023, I finally made it happen. I stayed in Stornoway, using a beautiful modernised castle as my central hub. Its location provided easy access to both the north and the south of the island, making it the perfect base for exploration. Weather plays a pivotal role in my photography. I often seek overcast conditions, as they provide soft, even light, reduce harsh shadows, and desaturate colours, perfect for minimalistic landscapes. Harris, with its rugged coastline, rolling hills and pristine beaches, combined with unpredictable Atlantic weather, offered endless opportunities to capture mood, texture, and atmosphere. Now, I'd like to take you through the series of images I captured in Lewis and Harris. This body of work is titled Still, a collection that reflects both the quiet beauty of the islands and the sense of calm I experienced while creating it. If you'd like to dive deeper into the story behind this project, including the inspirations and ideas that shaped it, feel free to pause the video now and explore further. This image is titled Timing. It was captured on one of the northern beaches of Lewis and earned its name because the ocean tide was receding at precisely the right moment. As the water drew back, it revealed a strip of beach perfectly aligned with the rocks that stood steadfast in the shallows. I used the long exposure to soften the clouds and to reduce any distraction in the water, carefully placing the base of the rock on the lower third to anchor the composition. This photograph, Divine, was taken on the renowned Luscantire beach in Harris. I composed the shot by using the pristine sand in the foreground as a foundation, leading the viewer's eye toward the solitary hill rising in the distance. A moody sky hung above, while sea mist bounced off the waves, wrapping the scene in a mysterious, almost spiritual atmosphere. This image is called Pure Shores, named after the immaculate quality of the beach itself. As the tide receded, it left delicate ripples in the sand that became natural leading lines, pulling the viewer's gaze towards the dark, looming hills on the horizon. Above them, the clouds drifted from right to left with an onshore wind, creating motion blur in the sky and adding a sense of drama to the otherwise tranquil shoreline. This photograph has a story behind it. After walking nearly 10 kilometers along a series of beaches with very little success, I was on the verge of giving up for the day, but curiosity got the better of me, and I climbed over a set of dunes to see what lay on the other side. But when I looked back towards the ocean, the contrast between the rough texture of the dune grasses and the smooth, silky waters of Lewis's coastline caught my eye. I set up my camera among the grasses, positioning them along the lower third of the frame, and created an image that felt like a quiet reward for persistence. I eventually titled it Giving Up, as a reminder that sometimes beauty appears just when you're ready to walk away. Next is the sound of silence. When I first saw this image on the back of my LCD screen, I knew it had captured everything I'd hoped for. A cloud had formed above the peak and swirled around it, and by using a long exposure, I exaggerated that motion to create a sense of inversion. The deep blue of the sky contrasted beautifully with the delicate white of the lone cloud. Negative space from the untouched beach acted as an invitation into the scene. While walking along Luscantire Beach, I turned back and noticed a dune protruding into the sand. Its shape reminded me instantly of the yin-yang symbol, with the subtle curve of the dune mirrored by the curve of the shoreline. I positioned the point of connection between the two directly in the centre of the frame, knowing a square crop would enhance the symmetry. By chance, both the level of the dune and the line of the beach aligned perfectly along the thirds, reinforcing balance. The stormy sky above deepened the contrast tonality and gave the composition the weight I wanted. This next image is titled Aisling, an Irish word meaning dream or vision. Patience was the key to capturing it. The clouds above moved rapidly, and from time to time, sunlight broke through, spilling across the beach. After several attempts, I waited for a moment when the light illuminated only the sand, while leaving the distant hills in shadow. A long exposure captured the clouds in motion, their trails drawing the eye inward to the main subject. The scene became dreamlike, a fleeting vision brought to life. Sometimes, when travelling, you stumble upon unexpected opportunities. I discovered a deserted beach along the west coast of Harris, just as the weather began to shift. The storms cleared, leaving behind a calm blue sky. The entire mood changed, and a quiet sense of peace seemed to settle across the island. I focused my attention on an isolated island in the distance, softening the choppy waters with a long exposure. The result was a serene composition, simple yet rewarding. Shellerbost Beach is one of Harris's most stunning coastlines, with its islands, sandbanks and shifting tides, offering endless opportunities for minimalism. This untitled image was taken in the soft afternoon light from the top of the dunes, overlooking the bay. I waited patiently, scanning for abstract forms within the wider vista. As the tide advanced, sandbanks were gradually revealed, giving me the subject I needed. On a more sombre note, this image is titled Tears in the Rain. Captured at Scarista Beach in the south of Harris, it reflects the raw conditions of the day: powerful winds, fast-moving clouds, and relentless showers. Using a long exposure, I softened the massive foreground waves into a silky, mist-like texture that contrasted against the rugged distant hills. Above, storm clouds swept across the horizon, their weight adding drama to the ethereal whiteness of the sea. This image is called Morning Script and was named for the feeling of reading the landscape, almost as though each element told its own story. The juxtaposition between the sandbar and the rising tide created a natural leading line into the frame, guiding the eye toward the distant hills bathed in morning light. A patch of cloud on the right added an extra dimension, while a small island to the left caught the first rays of sun, contrasting against hills that remained in shadow. It was a morning of contrasts, light and dark, calm after the storm, all written into the scene. One of my favourites from Schellenbost. This image is called Next to Me. It's a study in relationships. Two dark rocks in the foreground had just been revealed by the tide, their surface covered with seaweed and algae. Behind them, morning light illuminated the distant peninsulas. For me, this image wasn't so much about the composition as it was about the narrative. The rocks and the land felt connected, almost as though they were companions. Even the original frame, as seen in the next slide, included two clouds echoing that connection, though I chose to remove them in the final edit as they felt a little distracting. Photography isn't always about chasing the best light or frantically searching for compositions. Sometimes it's about slowing down, being present, and enjoying the process. On this day, that's exactly what I allowed myself to do. I strolled the landscape without pressure, which allowed me to slip into what athletes call the zone, a heightened state of focus where everything feels natural. It was in that state that I found this composition, which I titled Time Well Spent, because in the end, photography is as much about the time we give as it is about the images themselves. The salt flats of Harris are always a rewarding place to explore, with the distant silhouette of the Harris Hills as a dramatic backdrop. On this particular day, the tide was high, and I regretted not bringing my waders, as many of the marsh islands were unreachable. Yet that limitation became part of the challenge. Searching for order in the chaos of the flats is both difficult and exhilarating. Each step revealed new shapes, new possibilities, and new risks. Another minimalist work, this image is called Impressions. Captured on the quieter northern beaches of Lewis, the retreating tide left layers of water across the sand that shimmered in the low, diffused light. The scene had a painterly quality, soft, subdued, and understated. The photograph hints at reality, but leaves enough ambiguity for the imagination to fill in the rest. Minimalist landscapes can be deceptively difficult. At times, nature offers only fragments, and it's up to us to search for meaning. This untitled image is one such example. It may not be a favourite, but I spent nearly an hour with it, experimenting as the tide receded. Not every frame will become a masterpiece, yet each one adds to the story, the narrative of being there, looking and responding. Interchangeable explores tonality as a form of expression. By using intentional camera movement, I stripped away detail and emphasised soft, subtle shifts of light and dark. The overcast conditions naturally desaturated the palette, while long exposure heightened the ethereal effect. The final image became an interplay of contrasts, shifting, interchangeable, like the landscape itself. This image, Thinking of You, is about reflection, both literal and emotional. I had walked past the scene once, dismissing it before turning back. On the edge of a small loch, an island of reeds caught my eye. Their reflection mirrored perfectly in the still water. I framed the composition for balance, with the distant outline of Scotland's Highlands visible on the horizon. The final works in this collection move fully into abstraction. Along the beaches of Harris and Lewis, small streams trickle into the sea, carrying sediment that mixes with the sand. These flows create endless abstract forms, each fleeting and unique. The challenge lies in finding structure within that chaos. One image was rotated 90 degrees to confuse the eye, while another resembled a phoenix rising from the flames, wings outstretched. This is the beauty of what abstraction, the freedom of interpretation, the dialogue between viewer and image, and the reminder that sometimes nature is the greatest artist of all. I've never been a strict follower of compositional rules, but in minimalist photography, they can sometimes be essential for creating balance and focus. The rules I do use are simple, and that simplicity carries through into the work itself. Take this image from Lewis. By placing the rock on the third, I was able to balance the subject within the frame. The horizon sits across the middle, which some would argue is a mistake. But with such a powerful subject, the horizon becomes less important. What mattered most here was the connection between the foreground and the rock. As the tide receded, pristine sand was revealed, forming a natural leading layer straight to the subject. In another image, the sandbank acts as a more subtle guide. Its sweep and the contrast between sand granules draw the eye toward the sunlit hills. Placing those hills on the top third was vital, giving the scene balance between foreground and background. By aligning the right-hand third through the point where the hills meet, the eye naturally flows through the composition. This next photograph is almost graphic in structure. The left third cuts through the centre of the elliptical collection of reeds, while the right third carries you through an indent in the hillside. The horizon falls on the top third, and the dark cloud's reflection fills the bottom. That rhythm of thirds gives the image its calm, allowing the eye to rest and move comfortably across the frame. Even in abstract photography, compositional rules still apply. What caught my attention in this scene was a circular patch of lighter sand at the centre. I used it as the focal anchor, then positioned the camera so the diagonal lines of sand carried the eye through the frame. It's a simple structure, but it creates both flow and focus. The Isle of Lewis and Harris is one of the most extraordinary places I've photographed, and it continues to inspire my work through a sense of stillness, space, and natural beauty. If you'd like to take this experience further, my workshop company, Capture Beyond, offers you the opportunity to join me here in the field. Together, we'll explore these incredible landscapes, learn how to simplify compositions, work with natural light, and ultimately create photographs that carry both clarity and emotion. It's more than a workshop. It's a chance to immerse yourself into the landscape, to slow down, and to experience what minimalism can bring to your photographic journey. I'd love for you to be part of that journey, so thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you at the Isle of Lewis and Harris with Capture Beyond.